John was terrific all year. He's our point guard and our general, and our relationship is better than it has ever been. I think all the negativity at the beginning of the year actually brought us closer. We wanted to prove to people that they were wrong, and there was no issues between us. There was no beef. We need one another in order for this team to be successful.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily podcast on fantasy basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. And today's Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast is also brought to you by Dollar Shave Club. Go to dollarshaveclub.com/LOFB to get your first month for $5. My name is Josh Lloyd and you can find me on Twitter at redrock_bball. Instagram is the same, and facebook.com/redrockbasketball. We are back to do another of the season in review podcasts. This is team number 22. And of course, that is the Washington Wizards. So
let's get to it.
Let's get to it. Indeed, we'll talk Wizards. And a team that I guess was somewhat disappointing last season, but had a real bounce back, and they finished the year 49-33. Got themselves to a Game 7 against Boston with the chance to push through to that conference finals. A lot of people thinking they probably should have won that series. They didn't, so that's what the result was. But a really strong campaign from them under the first season of Scott Brooks as their head coach as well. And yeah, I guess some positive signs for the future. Have they got enough steam to push forward to become title contenders? Probably not. But can they be a top 2 team in the East, a top 3 team for the next 3 years? I don't have any real concerns about that being the case. They do have a lot of issues, though, with their bench depth. Some of their big man issues are a concern, but when you've got a backcourt of Wall and Beal, that's a pretty good start to building a strong team. They said they finished 49-33 last season, which overperformed their expected win-loss by 3 wins. So that's a decent amount of good fortune, but nothing too spectacular. We head into the draft, which we are a week and a half, 2 weeks away from at the moment. They have no first-round picks. They traded that to Brooklyn in the Bojan Bogdanovic deal. So all they have is a second-round choice, and that is pick number 52. I don't think we're going to see too much happening with that pick. Free agency, they've got a couple of interesting decisions they need to make here. The first one, of course, is Otto Porter, who is a restricted free agent and had a breakout season this past season. You would think he would attract max offers, and you would think that Washington matches those offers. I'm not sure about Porter. Obviously, he had some hip issues his first couple of seasons in the league that limited his production. Had a pretty solid third year and was really good, especially with his shooting. But I'm not 100% convinced that he is that good. I think he's pretty good. I think he's very good. I think he's a starter level player. He provides pretty good defense. He's obviously transformed himself into an excellent shooter last season, but he's used in a weird way on this team. He's underused, I feel. Just with the usage, they just don't go to him at all, which is just bonkers, in my opinion, the way that they ignore him on the offensive end. Is he worth a max? I guess if someone pays him, he's worth it. That's the way it works. But I'm a little cautious about how he goes moving forward. They've got a couple of other restricted free agents, Bojan Bogdanovic, who they did get from the Nets, as I mentioned, and Trey Burke from the Jazz. I'd be stunned if they brought Trey Burke back. Bogdanovic, almost certainly they will bring back after giving up that first-round pick to get him. Then they've got a couple of other decisions to make. Daniel Ashufu has a $1.3 million non-guaranteed deal. He provided nothing, so I don't think there's any danger of him coming back, really. And Sheldon Mack has a $1.3 million non-guaranteed deal as well. I thought he was okay. I reckon they'll bring him back for that second season of that contract. And then Brandon Jennings, who came across after he was, to me, inexplicably just released by the Knicks. There was absolutely no good reason for that whatsoever for them to cut him. He came across to Washington, and he's cooked. He's finished as a player. I think that's pretty clear from what we've seen from him in Orlando, what we've seen from him in New York, what we've seen from him in Washington, what we've seen from him in Detroit after he returned from that Achilles injury. He's cooked, and it's partly his own fault because of the way that he plays and his failure to adjust. And it's also the Achilles. You just don't get back from that injury, and that's what we're seeing with Jennings. He's a really bad player at this point. They could very well bring him back, but I wouldn't be having it as a high priority for this team. Let's talk about today's sponsor, which is, as I mentioned, Dollar Shave Club. We're heading up to Father's Day, and that's a weird thing for me to say because in Australia, we're not. And this is something I never understand. I don't know why Australia and the United States has the same Mother's Day, but we have a different Father's Day. And if I'm not mistaken, Australia and the United Kingdom have a different Mother's Day, but the same Father's Day. It's like we've just picked, we'll take your Mother's Day and we'll take your Father's Day. Our Father's Day is the first weekend in September. Our Father's Day is a long way away, but I know you guys in the States have got Father's Day coming up. So it's time to shape up not only your routine, but your dad's routine with an incredible game-changing shave from Dollar Shave Club. Dollar Shave Club delivers you an amazing smooth shave. You get your high-quality blades and the amazing shave butter delivered right to your door for an incredible smooth shave. Upgrade both your shave and your bathroom with Dollar Shave Club. To make your life easy, you don't have to go to the store and try to work out, which handle do I have? Do I have one from this company? Do I have one from that company? Do I normally get the 4 blades, 8 blades, 2,432 blades? Which one do I get? Don't worry about all that confusion now. Dollar Shave Club sends them directly to your door, the ones that fit, the ones that work, and for a fraction of the cost. And with Father's Day right around the corner, what better gift is there than to give a membership to Dollar Shave Club to your dad, to your father-in-law, to your son who may have just become a father. Whoever it is, Father's Day gifts from Dollar Shave Club would be greatly appreciated. For a limited time, new members to Dollar Shave Club get their first month of the Executive Razor with a tube of Dr. Carver's shave butter for only $5 with free shipping. After that, your razors are just a few bucks a month. That's $15 value for just $5. In your first month's box, you get a weighty handle, a full cassette of 4 executive cartridges, and a tube of shave butter. You can only get this offer by going to dollarshaveclub.com/LOFB. That's dollarshaveclub.com/LOFB. Do it for yourself. Do it for your dad. Get your Father's Day gift sorted early, and then you're set. And I don't think your dad's going to complain too much about a quality razor. So dollarshaveclub.com/LOFB. They were 7th, the Wizards, in offensive rating, so obviously a fairly high-powered offense, something that Scott Brooks has got some decent experience with dealing with his time with the Thunder. 20th in defensive rating, 6th in effective field goal percentage, 10th. They were 10th overall in field goals attempted, but this amazed me. They were 10th in that stat, but 2nd in the amount made. It's a huge amount of efficiency, and they also created the 3rd most turnovers. So despite their defense not being the greatest, they were able to get those turnovers to enable them to get the easier shots in transition, enabling that higher effective field goal percentage and offensive rating as well. The highest offensive rating on the team, I don't think anyone would be surprised. You know what? People would be surprised. I'm not, because it's Otto Porter, because he was just stupidly efficient and they just didn't use him enough. He was the number 1 in offensive rating. Brad Beal was 2nd, Marcin Gortat was 3rd, and then Bojan Bogdanovic came in at number 4. And the best defensive rating on the team, Jan Mahinmi, no surprise, really good defender. Andy Nicholson, before he was traded onto the Nets. Daniel Ashufu in his 2 minutes that he played. Jason Smith, Marcin Gortat, and Otto Porter, the other rotational players who were in that top 4 in the best defensive rating. They had 4 blokes shoot over 40% on corner threes. Beal, Porter, Jason Smith, and Trey Burke, with Beal and Porter both being over 40% on three-pointers in general, not just their corner threes. And Porter, as I said, was just stupid efficient. He was at 71% at the rim and 58% on two-pointers in general. 3 to 10 feet, over 50%. 10 to 16 feet, over 15%, over 50%. 16 feet out to the three-point line, over 50%. Everywhere that he shot it from, over 50%. And then from 3, over 40%. That's why he was so good and so efficient this year. Brandon Jennings, as I talked about earlier, just 41% at the rim because he's bad. And I've talked about Jeff Teague having this remarkably low percentage of assisted two-pointers at 9.6%, and then how that was 4% actually lower than Russell Westbrook, who was at 13.6%. Well, Brandon Jennings puts them all to shame. 5.6% of his two-pointers were assisted. It's very descriptive of Brandon Jennings' game, of that I'm getting the ball, I'm jacking up terrible shots, I'm dribbling around, I'm trying to drive, I'm not able to finish them, but I'm not looking for open shots. I'm not looking to pass it off and then get myself into position for that next shot. 5.6% of 2-pointers assisted is horrendous. It is so low. And I guess that's a great descriptor of just how his game is. Let's look at the advanced stats leaders on this team. Johnny Wall led the team in PR at 23.2, while Otto Porter at true shooting at 62.8. And we've got Carl Villa, who's just chimed in, watching live, must have missed the start of the show. He says, is Otto a max-out player? He will get maxed. I've got no doubt about that. I'm not 100% sure that that's the right thing, but he will get maxed, so that makes him a max player. Johnny Wall led the team in usage at 30.6, and Otto Porter, win shares, he led the team at 9.4, and win shares per 48 at 0.13, and he did all this with a usage of 15%. That is horrendously low. That is, I know that Beal and Wall use the ball a lot, but we don't need Gortat and Morris having all these shots over Porter when he led the team in true shooting and he had such a putridly low usage of 15%. That's disgustingly bad. Brad Beal led the team in offensive box score plus minus, while Mahinmi led the team in defensive box score plus minus, while Wall was the leader in box score plus minus and VORP. So I don't think there's too many surprises with most of those. I guess some people would be surprised about Otto Porter leading in win shares, but he was very important for this team. They had 4 lineups go over 100 minutes, but unlike so many other teams, I can harken back 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, when we talked Nets and Sixers, and they had 2 lineups go over 100 minutes and none go over 200 minutes. The Wizards had 4 over 100, and their most used lineup played 1,350 minutes. That is a stupendous amount of minutes for a lineup. And the reason is because A, they were able to stay healthy, and B, their bench was terrible. Beal, Gortat, Porter, Morris, Wall, that's that most used 5-man lineup, and that was a plus 8.1. Out of their other lineups that played over 100 minutes, the best lineup was Beal, it was Wall, it was Porter, it was Gortat, but it was actually Kelly Oubre playing the 4 in place of Markieff Morris, and that played over 100 minutes together, and that was a plus 18.3, which I think was somewhat of a surprising revelation to me to see that. Their most used 4-man, Beal, Gortat, Wall, and Porter for a plus 6.8. Their best 4-man, that name again, Kelly Oubre. Beal, Porter, Wall, and Oubre. That was a plus 17.8. So Oubre mixing in with those starters did actually work pretty well. The most used 3-man, Beal, Wall, and Porter was a plus 7. The best 3-man, Beal, Oubre, Porter, plus 15.1. Weird stuff, huh? The most used 2-man lineup, Beal and Wall, was a plus 6. I don't think too many people will be surprised by that. The best 2-man, Beal, Oubre, plus 8.7. And then I dug a little bit deeper. I wanted to see how Oubre and Porter as a 2-man lineup went together. They were a plus 3.3 in 522 minutes together. So that worked. And you can look at Oubre's numbers and they weren't spectacular, but Oubre and Porter playing together, that smaller lineup, worked. So that's something to look ahead to, I guess, with Oubre as we head into next season, is that he was a part of all their best lineups in that small configuration, and that's going to not demand him minutes, but it's going to guarantee him good rotational minutes as we move forward, I would feel. Anyway, that's how I would look at it, but, I'm not a coach. Let's talk about these players now individually. John Wall was the 12th ranked player this season. I was skeptical of Wall heading into this season, and it had nothing to do with his ability as a fantasy player. I have had him as a first-round guy for at least the last 3 or 4 years, and I didn't this year because of the knee injuries. He had 2 knee surgeries in the off-season. We didn't know when he was going to come back. There was, he may play in a preseason game. He might be okay for opening day. And that scared the shit out of me, especially considering last season we heard the exact same things about Kyrie Irving, and it took him until the end of December to return. He's a chance for opening day. That's what David Blatt said. And then Kyrie came back around Christmas. So with 2 knee surgeries for John Wall and that same uncertain tone, I was like, you know what? I don't know when this guy's coming back. He was ridiculous. He was so good. At the start of the year, they managed him a little bit. He sat out, I think, 1 or 2 games for rest early on. But in the whole, he was stupid. 78 games, 36 minutes, 23 points, a 3, 4 boards, 10.5 assists, 2 steals, 0.6 blocks, 45, 80, and just 33% from 3 obviously just drags him down a little bit. And in the end, his numbers, his ranking was exactly the same as what it was last season. He averaged an extra 4 points per game. He got slightly less rebounds, but more assists, more steals, same blocks, and shot at a higher overall efficiency with his true shooting going from 51 up to 54. He was really fantastic for this team and one of the best point guards in the NBA. And to me, he's a fairly steady guy in that group, which I talk about a lot, that 9 to 15 group with Chris Paul, Nikola Jokic, DeMarcus Cousins, LeBron James, John Wall, all in that same group between 9 and 15, 16. That sort of area that you want to push it to. That's where he sits, in my opinion. He'll do the same thing. You'll get 20 and 10 with 2 steals, over half a block, 4 boards, over a 3, and hopefully maintaining solid shooting at 45 and 81, which would be obviously quite beneficial, and something that had bothered him in the past was maybe a little bit of a poor field goal percentage. But you're at 45, it's not a big deal. That's a pretty good number, and it's something that's easily workaroundable with the correct team, of course. Brad Beal. Huge season from Brad Beal. Now, I was really critical of Scott Brooks playing him, not only playing him just ridiculous amounts of minutes, but saying things like, we're going to watch his minutes and play him 40. You watched him. You just watched him tick over and tick over and tick over, especially considering over the last 3 years, whenever Beal had played 4 games in a row, 5 games in a row of 38 plus minutes, he'd had a stress reaction in his leg. That had happened, I think, 3 times in the last 3 years when Randy Whitman had played him 40 minutes in a row for 4 games in a row, then his leg would break. And that was really tempting fate. Fate was tempted. It didn't bite. It didn't take the bait. He played through. He played 77 games. He played 35 minutes a game. And he was legitimately fantastic. He was the 30th ranked player this season. And he led the team in on-off at 12.9 with Wall coming in at 7.5. So that's impressive. And post-All-Star, he was even better with being the 27th ranked player. It's a huge step forward for Beal in that post-All-Star period. 36 minutes, 25 points and 3 threes, 3.5 rebounds, 3 assists, 1.3 steals, 50% from the field, 85% from the line, and 41 from 3 for a 62% true shooting percentage. On the season, he was a 48% shooter from the field. Just ridiculous efficiency. Now, we can talk about his ranking, which I have as being the 30th best player, but because so much of his value does come from three-pointers, and it is his best category, I'm not sure I would end up taking him at 30, just because, as I highlight all the time, the value of threes is a little bit lessened because of your ability to be able to get them from anywhere, really. So it does, when that is your number one category, it is not a huge concern. Like, Beal's good, but I'd be more comfortable taking him outside those top 3 rounds, maybe the back end of the 3rd round, rather than pushing towards the end of the 2nd, which I think some people, especially with his post-All-Star performance when he was the 27th ranked player, people will be looking to take him at that end of the 2nd round. And to me, that just feels like it's a little bit too high. Love what he did. If he's able to play those minutes, those games, with those legs, looks fine to me, no problem. Hopefully nothing comes of it again and we don't see any more of those concerns. He missed just 5 games. He gives a healthy amount of assists. The steals aren't fantastic. That's an area that he could work on, and hopefully he is able to get those steals up, but it just doesn't appear that's the way that he plays. But you're going to get 3 rebounds, 3 assists, 20 points, 2.5 threes or so, with really good percentages out of Beal, and that's huge for him. Now, he did take a big step forward in his efficiency, jumped by 5 true shooting percentage points, up from 55 to 60, so that is a significant jump there as well. So hopefully he can hold that. I imagine he will, but there is, I guess, some risk considering we haven't really seen that progression from him before. But just a ridiculous season from Brad Beal. Let's talk Porter, one of the big surprise players of the season. He ended the year as the 40th ranked player. Wasn't as good in the second half of the year where he was ranked 90th, but let's look at his overall season numbers. 33 minutes a game, 13.5 points, 2 threes, 6.5 boards, 1.5 assists, 1.5 steals, half a block, 52 from the field. Ridiculous. 83 from the line, 43 from 3 for a true shooting of a stupendous 63%. After the All-Star break, though, under 30 minutes a game. That's talking almost 3 minutes less per game. 10.8 points, 1.2 threes. Less rebounds, 5.7, 1.4 steals. The efficiency went down to 47% from the field, still at 94 from the line, but 34% from three for a true shooting of 57. There's my concern for you. Now, not a lot of people will look at Otto Porter and look at his 9-cat ranking. Oh, he's ranked 22nd. All right, John Wall was 18th, Porter 22nd, and Beal 29th. Under no circumstance would I ever consider him as the 22nd pick, as a second-round pick. Probably even a third-round pick, to be honest. I cannot get behind that at all, and that is inflated by his extraordinarily low turnovers. He averaged 0.6 turnovers, and I talk about if a guy's best category is threes, I knock it down a little bit. If his best category is turnovers, then I knock it down a bit as well, especially when after that insanely hot shooting, it did start to cool off as the season went past, and it wasn't like we've had this great record of Porter being this 44% three-point shooter and 52% guy across his career. He was a guy that the year before was at 47 and 37, the year before 45 and 35, and then took it up another 5% this season in both categories, which is such a massive, massive jump, and then it faded. And the fact that they don't use him, his usage at 15, somehow Otto Porter had a breakout year, but had a lower usage percentage than he did the year before, which is mind-blowingly stupid. Somehow that happened. He's a good defender. The steals numbers he provides, I'm confident they can continue. The block numbers, confident there as well. The rebounds, 6 rebounds a game, it's okay. But so much of his value is coming from the fact that if you're counting turnovers, that's where the number one part of his value is coming from, for a start. Secondly, it's coming from this stupendous efficiency from this 63 true shooting, 52 from the field, 84 from the line, the 1.2 or the 2 threes per game. There is absolutely zero chance that I would take him at pick 22, which again, this is where his 9-cat rank saw him for the season. In my head-to-head rankings, 49th he was for the year, 39th pre, 90th post. And to me, that probably is a decent spot to look at him. And there's almost no chance that I could draft him around that 50 spot because people will take him. They will take him at 22. They will take him at 25. They will take him at 30, and I probably won't. And I like Otto Porter. I've been a big Otto Porter fan since he was drafted. I remember they drafted him, and then they had Trevor Ariza, and then Ariza left. And I went, all right, cool. Otto Porter's going to step up. He's going to be a top 100 guy. And then they signed Paul Pierce and pushed that back a season. I was ready for Porter to break out 2 years ago. I didn't see this shooting coming, but I also do have my concerns. The nagging hip is a problem to me, that it just continually gets hurt. This is 4 years. It's continually got hurt. I think he's going to get paid a lot, and he should. But the usage problem is a problem, and the efficiency slide, it might be an issue as well. And again, so much of that 9-cat value is coming from turnovers. It's a stupid amount is coming from those insanely low turnovers. And that does, I think it artificially inflates where his value actually lies. I know some people will disagree with that, and that's completely fine. Markieff Morris had a real bounce back this season, something that I thought was pretty much on the cards, and it happened. 76 games, 31 minutes, 14 and 6.5 with 0.9 threes, 1.7 assists, 1.1 steal, and 0.6 blocks. Shot 46 and 84, including 36% from three. He was the 73rd ranked player for the season, and the team was 5.1 points per 100 possessions better off with him on the court. In comparison, Porter was only a 3.7 in the on-off, which is a little bit surprising to me. His head-to-head ranks 94 pre and 121st post All-Star break. And if you want to compare the numbers of Markieff Morris and Otto Porter, it's an interesting exercise. Markieff scored more points per game, 14 versus 13.4. So not a big difference. Otto more threes, 1.9 versus 0.9. Rebounding, Markieff at 6.5 versus 6.4, so the same. Assists, 1.7 to Markieff, 1.5 to Otto. Markieff, again, a slight edge. Steals, 1.5 to Otto, 1.1 to Markieff, so Otto gets the edge. And then blocks, Markieff just gets at 0.6 to 0.5. And my reason in highlighting this is saying that, again, with Otto Porter and Markieff, like there are guys who rank 30, 40 spots between them. And if you look at their 9-cat ranking difference, we're talking 73 to 22, 50 spots between them. But their overall stats, the big difference is the three-pointers. That's a big difference there. And it's the efficiency. That's what really, really brought Porter in from 52% compared to Markieff's 46% when their free throws were basically the same. So that Morris, you can talk. People might look at Morris. Oh, he had a disappointing season, and his stats aren't that far off what Otto Porter did, with the exception of threes, which is double. So that's significant. But everything else, it's pretty much right there. And that again, it's an illustration of how close rankings can be between 30, 40 blokes, and how we just need to really dig into these things a little bit deeper. And I think that's probably the case with Markieff, but definitely a big improvement from him. From that messed up season he had last year, half in Phoenix, half in Washington. It did not go his way last year in both of those places, but it was an improvement this year, which I don't think was too much of a surprise. Marcin Gortat played all 82 games and was the 87th ranked player. 31 minutes a game, 10.8 points, 10.3 rebounds, half a steal, 0.8 blocks, 58 and 65 for a true shooting of 59%. There's a couple of things to look at here. He played 31 minutes a game in all 82 games. That's good, obviously. It's pretty good numbers. He's 33 years of age. He blocked 0.8 shots. That is bad. That is real bad. That is Enes Kanter level of bad. 58% from the field is good. 10 rebounds is good. But what did he offer positively? Field goal percentage and rebounds. That's it. Blocks marginally. The thing is about this is that Gortat was a player who was the 47th ranked player before the All-Star break. It's 200th after it. And you know what the difference was? Jan Mahinmi returned. And, fingers crossed, Jan Mahinmi is going to be healthy next season. So, when we're looking at Marcin Gortat, what he did after the All-Star break, he played 24 minutes a game, 8 points and 8 boards, 0.2 steals, 0.4 blocks. He's not a draftable player to me next season. I know it's real early to say that, but the concern I had at the beginning of this year, and when we thought Mahinmi's out for 6 weeks or so, or even before Mahinmi's injury, okay, Gortat's a guy that is going to be around 100, 110, 120, that sort of a level. And people were going real hard on him and getting him in the 50s and 60s, and I didn't like it. And it worked out for the start of the season because Mahinmi was out for the first 3 months, and Gortat was playing like 37 minutes a night. And then Mahinmi came back and Brooks said, no, we're just going to play these guys equal minutes. And Marcin, you're playing 24 a night, and your lack of blocks and lack of scoring is really going to come to the fore. And with a healthy Mahinmi next season, it's going to be the case. Gortat's going to be 1 year older, as is everybody in the world. I understand that. But Mahinmi doesn't become 33 or 34. He is much younger than that. In fact, how old is Mahinmi? He is 30. So he's 3 years younger. So while it's not a big difference, when you're 33, you are significantly declining, or 34. And when you're 30, you're starting to decline. But I'm not saying Mahinmi's coming out and playing 36 minutes a night, but I'm sure as shit that Gortat isn't. And he's going to be mid-20s in minutes at best, and his value as a top 100 player is cooked. I think it's done. And that post-All-Star Jan Mahinmi era shows you why. And because they're just not going to play in those minutes because of the impact that Mahinmi can have defensively. Now, not saying that's the right decision, but it's what they're going to do. And I'm 100% confident that that will be the case. Bojan Bogdanovic. Let's talk about his time really in Washington, where he played 23 minutes a game in the 26 games that he played for the team. He was the 152nd ranked player in that time period, averaged 12.7 points and 1.7 threes. 3 boards, but in true Jan Mahinmi style, had 0.8 assists, 0.4 steals, and 0.2 blocks. Shot 46, 90, not Jan Mahinmi, Bogdanovic style, 46, 93, and 39 is his percentages. So stupid. Really, really good true shooting at 61.7. Really hyper efficient from Bogdanovic, but he offers nothing. He can't rebound, pass, steal, block. He can't get to the line. Although he got to the line not bad in Washington. And he hits threes. And he does it really streakily. He is most likely going to be behind Beal, Porter, maybe Oubre. I know that ranking says he was 150th, and 12-team leagues go 156 players deep. There's no way that I would want him in a 12-team league. None. Because his upside is 152. And that's his upside. He can't become a top 100 player. Even if he played 30 minutes a night, he just doesn't do anything. He just doesn't rebound. He's like Doug McDermott, but better. Like, he doesn't do any of these other stats. Rebounds, assists, steals, blocks. He doesn't do any of them. And you get no value out. You get some threes, sure. And you get inconsistent, bunchy threes. That's it for Bogdanovic. He was actually a negative 2.2 on this team with his on-off numbers, which I guess is a little bit surprising. And he does help their bench depth, which was terrible this season. But for fantasy, you don't want to really touch him as a top 100 guy, top 120 guy, marginal top 150, but I wouldn't look at him as a 12-team league player. Let's look at Mahinmi now, who only played the 31 games, 18 minutes a game, was the 200th ranked player for the season. The team was 1.1 points per 100 possessions better off with him on the court, and his second half post All-Star, he was the 151st ranked player in head-to-head leagues. He averaged for the year only 5.6 points, 5 boards, 1.1 steals, 0.8 blocks, 59 and 57 as his percentages. How big a decline was it from last season? Well, he saw his points per 36 drop significantly from 13.1 to 10.9. His rebounding dropped a little bit as well. His steal rate, which was through the roof last season at 2.1, went to 1. Let's try that again. His steal rate was 1.3 last year, and it went through the roof this year to 2.0. And his block rate was the same at 1.5 to 1.7. The efficiency about the same. The poor free throw shooting about the same, and the overall true shooting about the same. So what happened is he saw less field goal attempts, and that makes sense on a team with Morris, Beal, Wall. I was going to say Porter, but he doesn't touch it. He was used mainly as an efficient putback guy, a rebounder, and a guy that does the defensive things better than what Gortat does. So he is an interesting player. Last season, he was the 102nd ranked player in Indiana in his 26 minutes a game, getting a steal and block per game and 9 and 7 in those 26 minutes. I think expecting him to play 26 minutes might be just a tad high, but I reckon he gets over 20 next season, and I think he probably gets 22. Gortat 22. Morris plays at the 5 as well, and that's probably your center rotation unless they're throwing Jason Smith in there. This is assuming Mahinmi can stay healthy. Is he a top 150 player? I think it's pretty touch and go whether he's a top 100 player. I think in equal minutes, I would prefer Mahinmi over Gortat just for that ability to get those defensive numbers. But obviously, Gortat will score a little bit more. In equal minutes, I think Mahinmi's better. But his upside with both of those guys there is limited, much like Gortat's is. And they render themselves more as 14-team league guys or 16-team league guys at that back end because their upside is as limited as it is. But he's a player that can provide those defensive numbers for a team and for a fantasy team, and that's going to have value. So he is a name that I do expect to have a significant improvement next season, assuming, and again, we should assume that he's going to be fully healthy. Brandon Jennings was the 231st ranked player this season, 22 minutes a game, 7 points. But let's talk about what he did in his time with the Wizards, because some of that was with the Knicks and his role did significantly change. He played 23 games with the Wizards and only 16 minutes a game. Averaged 3.5 points. Yeah, 3.5 points in 16 minutes. 4.7 assists and 0.7 steals. So that's where any of his value is really, really sitting in that 4.7 assist mark. He shot 21% from 3 and 27% from the field for his time in Washington. That is amazingly bad. He had a true shooting of 35.7 and a PR of 9.7. He had negative offensive box score plus minus, negative defensive box score plus minus, negative VORP, meaning he is a below average player. He's not a below replacement level player because that would mean you're a -2, but he was still a negative. He is bad. And I don't really see too much happening. In fact, he is not their best backup point guard. Their best backup point guard is Tomas Satoransky. So, that's whether they go to that or not, or whether Brooks just wants to really ride the veteran, which is a criticism that I do have of Brooks at times. He's inflexible with that sort of thing. And when he went to Jennings and bloody Trey Burke at times over Satoransky, which made absolutely no sense whatsoever. And Jennings is horrible, and I don't really see where his future lies in the NBA. He, as we saw in those assisted 2-point numbers, he's jacking shots. He's not hitting them. He's a negative on defense. Like what else is he? Well, what is he providing? I don't know. The assist numbers were good. There's no doubt about that. And 4 assists in 16 minutes even had value in 12-team leagues. Streaming him in, hey, I'm going to get 4 assists here. That's really, really useful. And that can help me quite a bit. But overall, he just isn't a player that is any good anymore. And that's sad, because he was a guy that I was a decent fan of, I guess, at one point, especially during his time in Detroit. I thought he was a very good fantasy player, especially if you're willing to punt that field goal percentage category. Post All-Star, he was the 310th ranked player, and that is punting field goal percentage. That's how bad he was. That is horrendously bad. To be that bad is pretty amazing to me. To be just that, have that inability to shoot is just crazy, and to take the shots he did. Now, I did like the fact that he was able to pass the ball, but yeah, I don't have any faith in him. Jason Smith, 74 games, 14.5 minutes, 5.5 points, half a three, 3.5 rebounds, 0.3 steals, 0.7 blocks, 53 and 69 as his shooting percentages, and an amazing 47% from three. I'm not a big Jason Smith fan, but I was pretty impressed with what he did for this team during the season. I thought he was useful enough, and his fantasy value, when he got the opportunity, I thought he was pretty solid. And amazingly, post All-Star, he was the 153rd ranked player. With Mahinmi hopefully fully healthy, more minutes maybe coming for Oubre, Gortat, Morris, all still there. Smith's outlook doesn't look especially rosy as we move forward, and when we look at him and go, okay, he's going to jump forward and become a top 120 guy. I don't see that being the case. But for deeper leagues, for what Jason Smith can do, there's a little bit of something there. That ability to block shots and hit threes and do it efficiently is a pretty solid combination for deeper leagues. And I imagine that he'll be in maybe a similar sort of role, that 15 to 16 minute role, and be useful enough for 20-team leagues. Kelly Oubre, 79 games, 20 minutes a game. Definitely much improved over last season in his rookie year where he was terrible. 6.3 points and 0.7 threes, 3 rebounds, 0.6 assists, 0.7 steals, 42, 76, and a putrid 29% from 3 left him with a true shooting of 52%. But how was the improvement for him from his rookie season? Well, he played more minutes, so that's a start, an extra 9 minutes a game. He saw his scoring rate dip just a little bit, his rebound rate dip just a little bit, but he got his assist rate up slightly, and his free throw percentage up slightly. But overall, on a per 36 basis, he didn't actually improve his stats all that much. His true shooting went from 51 to 52. His three-pointers went from 32 down to 30, so a drop in his three-point percentage. His field goals went from 43 to 42, a drop in his field goal percentage. And nothing stood out as a huge, huge improvement. Although when you watched him play, you went, you know what, Kelly Oubre looks better. And he was in so many of those positive lineups for this team that you went, okay, he's starting to provide something. If somehow Otto Porter leaves this team, which I don't see happening, then Oubre almost automatically moves into that starting position. I don't think that Bojan Bogdanovic would do it because he's not good enough and that's not his role. I think that Oubre moves in there. Now, he is a guy that can get steals in a pretty high rate, but he does obviously need to improve that three-point shooting. He has been subpar in his first 2 years. Now, there is definite room for him to improve there. I'm not sold on Oubre, though, as a player, as a guy who's ever going to have top 75 upside. I liked what he did some of the time this year, but I just don't think that he's going to be a great statistical translator or a guy that puts up great fantasy numbers. The team was 2.2 points per 100 possessions, better off with him sitting on the bench. His ranking post All-Star was 334th. Nothing spectacular, despite him getting these extra minutes that he was getting. He's not a good ball mover. He's not a good passer. He's not a strong rebounder. Even when he plays the 4, there's just nothing super enticing about Oubre, and you could see him being a player who, if he played 30 minutes a night, maybe he's like a Marcus Morris type of a player, like 120th, 110th sort of guy. That's sort of where I see Oubre's upside. I'm not sold on him ever becoming a high quality starting caliber player. I think he might start, but I don't think he'll ever be a high quality starting caliber player. Let's talk Trey Burke. If I had a fart sound effect, I'd play that. He played 57 games, 12 minutes, 5 points, 0.8 rebounds, 1.8 assists, 0.2 steals. That is one of the bigger things that really has impacted Trey Burke's value. He cannot get steals at all. 46 from the field, 76 from the line, and 44 from three. So I'll give him credit. He had been a horrendous shooter. They got him for nothing for a second-round pick from Utah, and he was able to shoot. 46 from the field and 44 from three is fantastic in 57 games. A huge, huge step forward for Trey Burke. He was also a team worst, minus 13.3 when he was on the court. He is not good. He was the fourth point guard on this team, behind Jennings and Satoransky, and then started playing over Satoransky, which, pissed me off to no end. And as a restricted free agent, I don't think that the Wizards bring him back, and he's going to be a D-League Europe type of guy. I can't see him being in the NBA in any sort of significant role next season. I have as little hope for him being a role player or a guy that gets regular NBA minutes next season as I do for anybody. I just don't think that he is good. He is small. He's a horrible defender. The shooting did improve, but it had been horrendous before that. I don't think he's a good decision maker. I just don't think he's good. So any hope that you had of Trey Burke bouncing back, eliminate it. Tomas Satoransky, 57 games in his rookie year. He was one of these European players who I was super excited to see come over. He finally did, but it's not a great situation for him. Behind Brad Beal, behind John Wall, obviously, and then with Trey Burke getting those minutes. He played only 13 minutes a game, 2.7 points, 1.5 rebounds, 1.5 assists, half a steal, 42 and 70 with 24% from three. So horrendous shooting. 48% true shooting is really, really bad. I believe in Tomas Satoransky. I believe in his shooting coming back. He's a 40% shooter from three in Europe. I think that will return. Maybe not 40, but 36, 37. I think that will return. His overall efficiency will return. And he is a player who's large enough to get a steal per game. He can get rebounds. He can get assists. The problem is he's in this situation where he is playing behind Wall Beal Porter. And he's a backup at all three of those positions. And he should have been the main backup at all three of those positions all season. And getting him 21 minutes a game, I think, would be a great thing for this team to have a competent backup at those spots, when at the moment you're talking about Jennings, Oubre, Burke, and I think Satoransky's better than all of those guys. He's probably not better than Bojan Bogdanovic, but there is that there for him. The problem is I just don't see that happening. And that's going to limit his top 200 upside, his top 150 upside. I reckon if he found himself on the Kings, I'd happily say he's a top 100 player. Because I reckon he'd play 28 to 30 minutes, and I think he can really be that guy that goes 15, 4, and 4 with 1.5 steals and 1 to 1.2 threes. I think he can do that. It's just that his path to doing it at this point is a fair way away. He was, and talk about Trey Burke being a negative 13.3, which he was. Satoransky was a negative 0.1. So pretty much even with this team. I just didn't like the way that Brooks used him. Maybe it's a little bit different in his second year and Brooks gets a little bit more comfortable and Jennings is gone and Burke is gone. And that opens up those minutes for Tomas. I'm pretty interested to see how he develops, and I reckon a top 200 season could be in his future for this year. The rest of their bench is really, really terrible. Sheldon Mack, 10 minutes a game in 30 games, 3 points, 1 rebound, 40% and 85. He did okay. 23 from 3. That's not okay. Chris McCullough came across from the Nets, and I was interested in McCullough in the Nets, but he has been fairly abysmal in his time. Shot 14% from 3, played just 16 games for the season, and Daniel Achufu played 4 minutes and 19 games. I don't think Achufu's back. I think Mack is probably back, and McCullough's an extraordinarily deep league flyer. Maybe let's see if this develops, as he's only 2 years removed from an ACL injury. Maybe that starts to bring it back for him. But my level of faith in him has plummeted, and Mack and Achufu, I just don't have any hope in those guys being useful rotational players. So that obviously needs an upgrade for this team. Let's talk questions. Jordan, do you have to bake in an injury risk when drafting Beal now, or is that no longer a concern? I'm okay with it. He played a stack of minutes, a stack of games, and it was fine. Much like with Drew Holiday's leg, once they fix it, it looks like it's all right. So I'm okay with it. I'm good with Beal. Kyle Norb, Satoransky, disappointing play or not enough opportunity or mix of both? A little bit of both. I think the opportunity did cost him. He didn't shoot as well as what he would have liked to, but I think the opportunity will increase next season. And how should we view Oubre as a long-term prospect? He seemed to make a jump this year. Well, as I highlighted, he did seem to, but he didn't. Like, all his rate statistics were basically the same. He regressed in shooting, but he looked better on the court. I don't think he's going to be a great prospect. James C. How valuable is John Wall next season? Early second round? Man, I'm happy. If you took him at the end of the first round, I think it's fine. Getting 23 and 10 with 2 steals, over half a block, it's first rounder. But the problem is you got 7 blokes who could go in those last 3 picks of the first round. So anywhere from 9 onwards, no problem to me for John Wall. I think that's a solid spot to take him. No issues with that at all. 11, 12, 13, they're probably the sweet spots for him. I think that's bang on where John Wall needs to be. All right, we're done. That is it for the Washington Wizards show. Make sure you do check out our sponsor, dollarshaveclub.com/LOFB, and get your dad a Father's Day present with a $5 initial offer of the shaving butter, handle, and 4 cartridges delivered right to your door. Subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, TuneIn, and Stitcher. And we are done. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya. Bradley Beal.